What's up? Welcome to Tech Newsday.
Yeah, and we'll get into the tech part of this, but let's start here. Now, the world has recently been captivated by the youth soccer team and their coach from Thailand who were trapped inside a cave after heavy rains flooded the path that they'd come in on. After being missing for 9 days, the entire group of 13 people was miraculously found alive inside the cave thanks to a search and rescue team consisting of highly skilled divers who traversed the flooded cave and finally located them. So now that they were found alive, the problem became, how do you get them out? With the initial answers being either teach the kids how to properly scuba dive, or bring them supplies and wait 4 months until monsoon season was over and just let them walk out. Should be noted, a lot of them did not know how to swim, if any of them. So,
hey, that seemed like a bad idea. 9 days in. So to keep this incredibly long, perilous, yet thankfully heartwarming story short, we're just gonna explain very quickly that as of this week, all the soccer players and their coach have been successfully rescued from the cave and are now free to appear on Ellen or wherever else after they're out of the hospital and checked out, and everyone says you've recovered.
Yeah.
So how did they end up getting out? Well, it was not because of Elon Musk, and we'll get to that part, don't worry. But they ended up going with the plan to teach the boys how to swim and then how to scuba, and couple that with constantly pumping in as much water out of the cave as possible with the tools they had at their disposal.
yeah, once they'd pumped enough water out to make it as safe as possible for them, they used a system of 2 divers for each boy. The first diver was tethered to the boy and also would carry his oxygen tank through the tighter parts of the cave. They also had a dive line that would allow them to navigate properly without getting turned around or disoriented at all. Now there was a second diver. He followed behind both of them as a sort of safety net in case anything went wrong. And they also apparently gave the boys some anti-anxiety medication so that they wouldn't freak out or, I don't know, start hyperventilating during the whole rescue mission, which, again, it's in dark, murky water in a dark cave. Definitely horrifying. And it also should be said that this was no walk in the park even for the divers, the professional ones. Just going one way was a 5-hour trip. And once during the rescue mission, when they finally reached the points where they were no longer submerged and the kid could walk or whatever, they had to then ascend the rest of the way to the opening of the cave, all over slippery rocks, and it was, not exactly a fun excursion like you might be imagining. It was treacherous from start to finish.
So it is safe to say there were some terrible moments along the way, which included not only the feeling of hopelessness, by rescuers and the soccer team, but a retired Thai Navy SEAL died after passing out during one of the missions that was bringing extra air tanks to the place where they were trapped. So obviously people from around the world wanted to help as much as they possibly could during the various stages of the rescue, and the final team of rescuers consisted of professional divers from around the world. But there was also another man who was determined to help, even though no one asked. Did you ask him?
I didn't ask him.
He didn't ask him. I looked at his call log. That man we didn't ask was Elon Musk.
Yeah, now we should obviously reiterate here that we think this was a completely noble endeavor by Musk. A very nice gesture.
He did more than me. He
didn't have to do anything at all. Anything at all. He didn't have to do shit. But we assumed that he'd just seen how desperate the rescue operations were and probably thought to himself, if I can help in any way, I should. Which is noble. Yeah, that's a noble thing. So he, along with engineers from both SpaceX and the Boring Company, traveled to Thailand to see what they could do to help. The idea they came up with? A child-sized submarine connected to an oxygen line that could be guided by 2 divers through the narrowest portions of the cave. Sounds great on paper, right? He even named it Wild Boar, which is the name of the soccer team that the kids, played for.
Yeah, so...
And now have PTSD about.
Hey, I was trapped in a cave, and this guy wanted to put me in a metal tube. Well, Elon got to work right away, and he had his team back in the States build a mini submarine using parts from his SpaceX Falcon rockets and based on the dimensions of the cave so it would fit. So they started testing it at a pool in Los Angeles, and eventually it was delivered to the region of Thailand where the team was trapped. Elon even decided that the submarine could have use outside of the rescue mission, saying in a tweet, with some mods, this could also work as an escape pod in space. But cool, that might be a bonus in the line, but could it actually aid in the rescue of the kids?
I do like the idea. In my mind, he's using this on a mission where he's on board, him and Grimes are on board, and like they get into a fight and he just jettisons her like off the spacecraft, just like the dad in the Jetsons and Judy, just like.
I think it's more of a Mr. Burns situation. Like, hey Grimes, come in here and see this video of a cute cat, and then she just falls to the floor and he just.
I'm sure the relationship's fine.
And then he just eats a bagel.
They're probably doing fine.
Allegedly.
Anyways, back to this kiddie submarine. Now, first of all here, if you watch the videos of this thing in action, it honestly looks like it would be far more horrifying for each of these kids because you're literally slid into a fucking tube a very small space, even for a child, with zero situational awareness, and you just have to wait in pure darkness for hours as you're hopefully still being dragged out. If anything went wrong, like, I don't know, one of the divers dying or the oxygen line getting stuck or something, I don't know, you would be trapped in there and you would have no idea that you're even trapped until you pass out
And then
die.
you get to die.
Now, we know, desperate times, desperate measures, but the idea of being shoved into a tube where you can't see anything and you can't even move because it's so small, that is a fucking nightmare.
That's bad. No windows, and then...
I'm not even that claustrophobic at all, and this, like, watching the video of the guy sliding out of it was like, nope, I would give me the scuba guy.
It seems scary enough to be in this tube that's like being dragged and banged around, but it's almost like it's scarier when the banging stops.
Yeah, and you're like, wait,
what?
Where am I? Am I floating still?
That
is
was
anyone out there?
That was like a half hour. So yes, what if something went wrong with the sub? The wheels get turning. Any number of things could go wrong with any rescue attempt, but Elon Musk was basically signing his name to this thing. So if everything went perfect, he would have been responsible for saving these boys and he would be a hero.
Yes.
But even if one thing went wrong and someone died in this thing, he'd have to live with that for the rest of his life. It just seemed like a real big risk, even for someone like him, real life Tony Stark man. But kudos, guy, for taking the risk.
Yeah, he without hesitation was like, I will help at any cost. And if something goes wrong, he must have anticipated what would happen, because even the noblest of gestures, if something went wrong, it would have A, probably fucked him up on a mental level. B, would have done terrible things for his reputation and his companies.
Bad news.
So yeah, when I originally saw this article, before I started reading into it, I was just like, bravo, but also you are taking a huge risk here.
It could be a big PR move, and whether this was so far down the list of things that they never would actually use.
Yeah.
It's
Well, as you're already aware by now, they didn't need Elon Musk's kitty submarine, and even before the rescue attempt, they informed him that although they appreciate his help,
thank you so much.
They didn't need his sub, with the head of the entire search operation saying to the New York Times, I assure you that the equipment he brought to help us is not practical for our mission. Even though the equipment has state-of-the-art technology, it does not fit our mission in the cave. So it was mostly a waste of time and resources. Now, a very noble and good-willed waste of time and resources. And to be fair, he did get the go ahead, and we'll talk about it in a second here, from someone involved in the search and rescue operation who was like, yeah, keep going, keep working on it, because if the rains come through again in a heavy way and it gets even more flooded,
it's gonna be a bigger problem.
We might have no other option, so please, thank you.
Yeah, and kind of like the boring company was...
They sent flamethrowers, they were like, here, maybe you can burn your way out.
That was an answer to a question no one asked. His phone didn't ring, but...
He was like, it's hot in LA.
Yeah.
The heat is evaporating the water on the ground. What if I sent them 13 flamethrowers and they just cooked their way out?
Those are actually not a flamethrower.
Oh, yeah.
It's a different
thing,
but...
Brevity is thrown out the window in these situations.
Look, guys, but yes, to be fair, Elon was apparently emailing back and forth with one of the dive team leaders who basically replied telling him to keep developing the sub in case the rains kept falling and the water levels went up. Although the same guy, Richard Stanton, said after the fact that the cave's passageways proved to be too narrow for the sub. Again, it's a metal tube that doesn't bend.
Yeah, it can't really bend.
But regardless, his heart and his teams were all in the right place here, and it's not a complete waste of time and materials because, as he said in one of his tweets, it could totally be used for that space escape pod for one of his rockets. Boop! But it just ended up having no use in Thailand. So when all was said and done, the kids were rescued without his help. Musk just decided to leave his invention there, saying in a tweet, "You throw this." No, said,
you get rid of this.
Yeah, I'm not checking a bag. Just returned from Cave 3. Mini sub is ready if needed. It's made out of rocket parts and named Wild Boar after kids' soccer team. Leaving here in case it may be useful in the future. Thailand is so beautiful.
It is a beautiful country. I'll give them that.
Hey man, you got to recycle this because I can't.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it.
Well, whatever. The kids are back above ground now, and that's all that matters. Now Elon can get back to his other projects, like fulfilling Tesla Model 3 orders and getting into fights with people on social media.
Hey.
Which is why we all really love him, and why his probably investors and board don't like it so much.
I know.
They fucking were like holding their breath all weekend with this.
Please don't use it.
Please don't kill one of these kids, Elon. Elon, please, your intentions. But if a kid dies, like, even if he has a panic attack from being in there and fucking you know.
Can't you just go back to stealing some girl's dad's unicorn and not paying him for it and getting that kind of press?
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Anyways, but speaking of getting in fights with people on social media, or hell, just setting up bot accounts used to instigate fights between any number of people with the purpose of tearing the very fabric of our society apart.
Ooh, you talking about Twitter?
You may soon be out of luck because Twitter has recently confirmed in a report with the Washington Post that they are suspending a staggeringly high number of accounts and have nearly doubled the amount of suspended or banned accounts since they faced Congress last year to admit that, Russia's used fake accounts to sway public opinion and instigate battles on the platform. Okay, fine.
Yeah, according to the article in the Post, Twitter has been suspending upwards of 1 million accounts per day, with more than 70 million accounts suspended between May and June alone, adding that they are still at the same pace this month as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just people and politically charged bots that are abusive, it's also their attempt to combat spam bots and fake accounts as well, which obviously don't look great for the company considering they'd previously stated that only around 5% of its over 300 million active accounts were fake accounts or spam bots. Based on how many they are suspending or banning, the numbers just don't add up, which makes the company look pretty terrible to its investors who, you could imagine, only care about the number of active users and engagement counting to grow because...
Yeah, it's like, you are saying that only 5% are these fake spam or bot accounts, and yet there's 330 something million users, but you're banning 70 million so far in 2 months,
That's a lot.
How many people are actually on your site, Twitter?
Yeah, and it just... Again, when you're selling ad impressions to bots, don't do nobody no good. It's a lose-lose.
Anyways, like the whole thing, this whole idea that this platform is so big and needs so much policing, this is crazy. So imagine creating a fun little company. Imagine just, hey, got a good idea.
Can I name it?
Sure.
Elon Musk's Kid Submarine.
Oh, okay. No, but imagine creating a fun little company named Twitter, where you just wanted, people to share musings and jokes in a space that was just big enough to fit a standard text message, only to become one of the biggest outlets for discourse between literally anyone and everyone on Earth. Then having to monitor everything for things like, threats, copyrighted content, manipulation, spam, and many, many other things, after only turning an actual profit for the first time earlier this year, after 12 years of being a product.
It's crazy.
This year was the first time, and now that they're getting rid of all the accounts that are making all the money, I don't know what's gonna happen.
Flush the toilet.
Yeah, imagine that, just being like, it'd be fun, this app. And then it's like, fuck. It's the only means for discourse between...
It is the most, and again, I know Facebook is a whole different conversation, but yeah, the constant back and forth, and again, it's I don't care how you're politically aligned, but it's very difficult if you're on either side to go on there and not have your day ruined by people fighting and just the total lack of decency. Because again, I kind of compared it to if two people were doing what everybody always does on Twitter. I'd be like, Ricky, you gotta get out here. Some crazy guy is screaming at some woman.
And then I would just walk up and start arguing with him.
And then you just walk out and you do it, and I was like, oh, that's
actually
right. This is Twitter. This is not real life.
Anyways, it must be a fucking nightmare to work at Twitter sometimes. I can't even imagine. But speaking of nightmares, it's time for Phil Lorigo to come on to the show. Oh, he's here.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's his part where he talks about the horrifying realities of tech and how tech in general affects our day-to-day lives.
I don't think there's too much difference between the last story and this one. But let's see if you can see the seam on this one. But yeah, it's become completely cliche to say that we're living in an episode of Black Mirror or The Twilight Zone or whatever reheated, overused analogy you want to use. But kind of, sort of, literally in China, they're living in a world where technology is being used to track, apprehend, and overall dehumanize the human experience.
How bad is it, Phil? Well, I'm gonna read your part here. There are an estimated 200 million surveillance cameras in China, roughly 4 times as many as in the United States. That number is insane, but there are 1.4 billion people for the government to track after all. And you gotta remember that this is a communist government that only allows its populace to play in a nerfed, walled garden of a censored internet.
Yes, and it's not just cops using facial recognition glasses like RoboCop to ID people in crowds using AI, like, oh, there's the perp and beep boop beep boop.
Yeah, that's a criminal. I will stop him and therefore save the day.
Yeah, that's literally happening. But
yeah,
there's an AI-run camera network cross-referencing a database of criminals against everyone in public at beer fests and walking down the street and on buses. So unfortunately, it's going beyond apprehension and intimidation and into shame at this point.
Well, normally if you saw your face on a giant billboard, you'd probably be pretty stoked. I mean, Angeline's been doing it for years, although she does keep most of it covered. But in China, where's Elliot at? He's actually closer to China than all of us. But in China, photos of people who broke the law are having their faces displayed larger than life, along with their government ID numbers. It doesn't matter that you already have been caught for your crime, but now you get to be gossiped about because propaganda outlets are deeming this as further punishment.
Yeah, kind of what happened was...
It's like Florida.
They were seeing... people were seeing their names and their photos, and they thought it was that they won something or it was cool. And then the government was putting out propaganda to be like, this is punishment.
Yeah.
So people get told stuff.
They're literally publicly filing compromats on everyone.
Yes. So people are basically getting docked for shit that they already paid for.
But my part of Florida where I grew up, it's kind of the same thing. If you got arrested, there was a weekly magazine called Busted. And they sold it at all the local convenience stores, and you could buy it, and it was literally just a magazine of mugshots with your crime, even if you weren't convicted.
Wow, Busted.
Yeah.
I think you should bring that in, but analysis...
I did buy one once. I don't know where it is, though. When I was home, I bought one to be like, dude, I've been telling people about this, and they don't fucking believe it. No.
Well, non-busted analysis estimates that China will have 300 million cameras by 2020, and the National Police Force will spend an additional $30 billion in the near future to expand the state-sponsored digital ID program. So on top of all this, state media propaganda, and remember, this thing is presented as a documentary. There's a thing called Amazing China. It has visuals right out of Minority Report, and yes, again, the subject matter and the details in it, they're right out of Black Mirror, but the graphics look like something out of, and some of the content out of a episode of Black Mirror or Minority Report.
In the documentary, a narrator explains what happens with facial recognition and when police officers show up at a criminal's home. If there are anomalies, the system sends an alert. The film then quotes one of the officers, "No matter which corner you escape to, we'll bring you to justice." Not exactly subtle as to what the messaging is here.
I mean,
that's like a tagline from a fucking dystopian future movie.
Or Children of Men,
it continues and said, "And you'll be tried and judged by Judge Dredd."
Judge Dredd. Yeah. That's my Judge Dredd.
And then he kills you.
I mean, if you're found guilty, and to further the
everybody's guilty.
Everyone's guilty.
You gotta be. There's something in here. Let me dig through your stuff.
I found a Ricky. So to further the comparisons to Big Brother, we didn't use Big Brother yet. So hey, to make this more like Big Brother, there's reports out there that smaller crimes such as jaywalking are down because the whole concept here is that if you aren't sure if you're being watched, you will behave better in case you are.
Yeah.
It's that the type of thing why they made Santa Claus and all that. If you're being watched, you're going to behave. And
conspiracy hat.
Ooh, do tell.
Conspiracy hat. We're doing this in America, in the United States, and the government's not doing it. We're just doing it to ourselves because every fucking Nest camera and every Blink camera and every fucking camera that's like motion activated all has speakers and microphones on it, and they constantly are filming, especially when there's movement. That's the whole fucking point. So if you are concerned about the NSA reading your text messages or seeing that you're looking up furries, which I only had to do yesterday for yesterday's video, by the way.
Okay.
It would be not that far of a stretch to assume that there is a national database somewhere of literally every fucking Nest camera that every fucking house has on it, and every camera that's connected to the internet at every business everywhere, creating probably what is more than a lot of other countries. I don't know if it's about as much as China, but you could imagine how many fucking cameras there are connected to the internet everywhere.
Yeah.
And as we've seen before, in the past, you can sometimes, there's even a subreddit for it, like look up the IP address of cameras and just watch other people's cameras.
Because they don't know. And again, that's just...
Because they can just keep like the standard settings on it, and it's like admin password.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the hat off. I gotta stop talking about it because I'm gonna have some fucking Men in Black at my door. G-men or whatever they're called. Not the alien ones, just the ones that intimidate you into shutting up.
Just you're like, all right, dude.
But they all smell bad. That's the one thing. I think.
They love sugar, so.
Yeah. Sugar, please. Anyways, before we go, here's some more tech tidbits from the past week or so, starting with the fact that AT&T apparently has some big, stupid plans for HBO now that the merger between AT&T and Time Warner is finally complete. Apparently, they really want HBO to up the amount of content on its channels. And as we all know, quantity rarely equals quality. So this news comes from a recent report from the New York Times where they obtained audio from a town hall meeting where former AT&T exec and current chief exec of Warner Media, John Stankey, great name, had the following discussion. And before we get into it, I imagine that anytime there's a problem, they're like, put a little Stanky on it.
Put a little Stanky on it.
Yeah. Anyways, here's what he said. We need hours a day. It's not hours a week, and it's not hours a month. We need hours a day. You are competing with devices that sit in people's hands that capture their attention every 15 minutes. I want more hours of engagement. Why are more hours of engagement important? Because you get more data and information about a customer that then allows you to do things like monetize through alternate models of advertising as well as subscriptions, which I think is very important to play in tomorrow's world. Emphasis me.
I was going to say, did you get the recording?
I did make it sound a bit like Dr. Evil, but you could take that, just read it blandly.
Then anyway, an exchange between him and HBO CEO Richard Plepers went as follows. Stanky said,
"We've got to make money at the end of the day, right?" To which Plepper replied,
"We do that." And he said, "Yes, you do, just not enough." Plepper replied that with, "Oh no, now be careful." So yeah, you could see things were tense.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a whole lot of consumer confidence to be parsed out of that conversation. As we've seen with things like Prime and Netflix, they're shitting out 1 billion titles as quickly as possible that half the time you don't even know exist. When someone's like, "Are you watching Bleepers on Amazon Prime?"
My favorite show where they just cuss and I can't hear anything.
Boop. And yeah, so they're doing all that, and that doesn't always mean it's worthwhile or good. So either way, something's going to happen, whether we like it or not. So we just have to sit tight and let executives decide it for us because they're in charge.
The kids need 5-minute HBO shows on their phones. Give them what I think they want. It worked very well for Go90.
Oh, that's where I knew your voice from. I was like,
It's me,
I know.
John Verizon.
John Verizon over Go90.
Anyways, Google, where the hell do you think you're going? You're not getting off that easy this week, okay? Although you did do okay this time when it's all said and done. Anyways, YouTube's AI, it's still pretty dumb. And even though they are making progress in the amount of false strikes, false demonetizations, and actually releasing improvements to the platform, the AI, it's still learning. It's still kind of dumb, which is now proven by this recent news involving a musician on the platform named Paul Davids, who, according to the BBC, creates content where he plays famous guitar riffs, compares different instruments, and teaches guitar skills and techniques.
As you can see where this is probably going. Now, sure, maybe a video of him playing a song from a famous artist would get him a strike, or at the very least have his video monetization filtered over to a record label that owns the rights to that song because it's theirs, but that's not what's happening.
No.
See, we pulled the twist. You see, alongside all these other videos, Paul Davids is a musician himself and has obviously created his own musical compositions. Apparently, one of those original songs was downloaded by someone who built on top of the track and added the vocals. And that person then uploaded their song,
quote unquote,
which was just Paul's song,
yeah,
to the platform. And then Paul received a copyright infringement notice for his own original song, basically being accused of plagiarizing someone else's stuff.
But
it
was him.
Actually his own song.
Paul, you're plagiarizing yourself.
Paul.
Don't plagiarize yourself. That's what DJ Khaled says, right? And he also says, don't eat pussy.
I mean, if you type
I got 2 rules.
There should be a DJ Khaled translation filter on Google. It's like, don't plagiarize. It said not to eat it.
Yeah.
Don't eat it, folks.
Yeah.
Coordinate.
What's worse is that Paul backtraced the artist who lifted his riff, then contacted him on Facebook and attempted to be pretty civil about the whole thing. The guy replied with, "Hey, I don't know, I did download a couple of guitar licks somewhere off YouTube. Would you consider letting me still use this?" Which is kind of a dick move. If you get called out, just be like, "Oh, sorry, dude, I found it on a blog," as Fat Jew or Fuck Jerry would say. Yes. Anyways, Paul had already appealed the strike and actually won.
Good.
So he let the guy keep his version of the track up, knowing that Paul himself would be making the money off of it after, briefly having all the money generated by both uploads flowing into the account of the guy who stole the song, which was bad.
Scumball.
In the end, finally, no harm, no foul. Paul Davids is fine now, and at the very least, YouTube's Content ID system sort of worked after the appeal. It's just weird that it initially struck a video for copyright that was uploaded well before the video that it was basing the claim on. Like, this song went up first, and then this one comes up however long later, and that's what's used for the copyright infringement.
Yeah.
I kind of get it, because like if people are posting clips of, say, like what did we say earlier, like Three Ninjas or something like that at some point, say then Three Ninjas puts their thing up later.
Yeah, it's a Blu-ray remaster in 2019.
But then it analyzes it and it's like, oh, okay.
I was from 2016. You should owe me. And it's like
Universal Pictures gets a fucking copyright notice because some dingbat uploaded Jurassic Park footage fucking 5 years ago.
And I think the YouTube channel is Elon Musk's Child Submarines. They're doing that. They're just getting everything struck.
Yeah. We all live in a child submarine. Child submarine. Child submarine. Anyways, thanks for joining us again, Phil. It's very hot in here, so let's leave.
We're going to go.
The goddamn hill's on fire right next to us.
It is literally.
That is not a joke.
Posted on.
Look it
He
up.
showed me the thing. I was like, that's near. Oh, boy.
Yeah, the hill's on fire. We got to go before we're smoked out in a bad way. Anyways, watch our recent episode of Idiots Watching Anime, where me and Elliot watched Attack on Titan, and enjoy that. And also watch the episode we did yesterday with Jeremy Azevedo, where juggalos and furries, I thought, would be like oil and water.
A Venn diagram.
But they're more like peas and carrots.
That manages to overlap for once.
Bye.
Bye.